sort of phenomenon that I've observed and commented on going on here with some of these servants in terms of sickness being a means to gain attention or be special in some way or part of some sort of a club, and how much of that is a result of a society that is really narcissistic and needs to find something different about themselves or be famous or be really obsessed with health and sickness and death. And if what she's saying is a misinterpretation of what she was told, when God is speaking with servants that are not really cognizant of His presence, things come off as your own thought. There is not really a differential between what you think are your own thoughts and what God is saying. And part of what some people call a struggle is sort of fighting that or learning to sort of understand within ourselves that our nature is not good and that we need guidance in order to learn any type of love and caring and what some people call civilized living. And the thoughts that we have in our minds are built upon through cycles, and when we fear that sort of realization, one sort of example that was given is that when you are in school and you are taught that 2 plus 2 equals 4, and you know that in your mind, do you become freaked out by that? As if you don't have any of your own thoughts, or that becomes part of your thoughts and part of your learning. Some of the fear and sort of ending up in mental hospitals and things like that, is that coming from an ego that thought that it could think, and when realizing that it's sort of not really that way. I do not think of it like that. I don't know if that's just age, where that doesn't really bother me, and I don't mind really being along for the ride and being sort of created along the way, or if that is sort of, it's got to be that, because it's not as if certain servants are just special in some way. Um, Sometimes I've pondered that people have different jobs, and I don't know if servants are created, some of them, where they sort of just prefer to live and think that they can think, and other servants don't really have that. Um, or if it's just an evolutionary process that we get to. Um, One other thing, when people have excelled at a job, and you have servants that are artists, and they have just some people would call miraculous talent, that um, that only comes from Almighty God, like an indwelling, and that maybe at that time period, a servant would be frightened to just be saying that outright, and would hide in some sort of seclusion. Um, Based upon some of their reactions, even in this day and age, to things that I was doing, um, there could be a fear where people will flip out and start burning witches again, and locking people up in institutions and giving them lobotomies sometimes. I know when I got here in 2011 that there was a fear of that, so that's all clearly has happened, um, because I don't find that to be just an irrational fear within myself, that being quote unquote crazy would lead to some horrific thing. Um, this bit about playing the game, and I guess to some degree I'm sort of resentful about that. I can understand it, um, but when you're in a society where they simply give you a stipend and you kind of just let them think that you're crazy, why you would not reveal that to other servants, just, on the ground? Is that sort of not knowing that you're not crazy? Or just you haven't found anyone that you could speak to who would sort of say, yeah, we know, we all sort of play this game where we say, yeah, you guys are sane when we know you're insane, or this sort of a sleep term, or stuck in the delusion. Um, I've not found that. I did not find that information here growing up. Um, in terms of the schizophrenia, it's my understanding through my experience that that is not actually a mental illness, that all people have all of these internal dialogues going on within their mind, but that people that are not schizophrenic, they don't realize they're doing that. That it's so repressed, and that those voices are actually still affecting them, and that schizophrenia to me is sort of evolution in its works, where it's not quite really understood that that's what's going on. And this bit about the bipolar got into that somewhat, where that can be different things, where people have psychopathy, or they have schizophrenia, or they have major clinical depression, and where they themselves may feel, and the people around them, that when they express any type of emotion, that that is somehow a sickness, and that being sort of sociopathic would be normal, and in a society that's clearly ill, um, and then sort of thinking that anyone that's unhappy or having emotional problems is ill because they're not sort of just robots in a system, and can't really live in that and deal with all of that sociopathy. Um, when you have sort of a pandemic of people having cognitive issues, or people that have not gotten to a point of learning, can that be resulting in some of this thinking that people are not awake going on? I wouldn't exactly consider myself asleep before 2011. Just sort of observing and not doing a specific task that Almighty God asked me to do. I think that that sort of thinking can be not really ever giving me a chance to speak and express myself, and sort of creating a personality for me that was not me. Um, some of the previous's, yes, were sort of repressed, where in 2011 that was sort of brought to the surface in a somewhat dramatic way. I mean, I didn't end up in the hospital, and I wasn't, to my view, really acting that odd. Um, Also, in order to try to assist, I guess, without sounding grandiose, because I have to ponder in my mind what a reason would be for a thing to happen to me. Having an experience of sort of confusion and voices and things like that, that upon meeting other people in that situation, having some sort of an understanding of it, like in the living detail of it, um, that perhaps some servants either can't really explain what's going on, or they are afraid to explain what's really going on. And children that don't really have an opportunity to speak like that and explain what's going on being medicated. Um, so in terms of awake is in that, um, I think if we go through a process like that ourselves, and then we sort of hope that people are just asleep somehow, and they're not actually having a problem, that could happen. Um, I don't, to my understanding, believe that Almighty God just takes a person and they're just in some sort of awakening process while everyone else is sort of left to run around in the dark. Um, I think that Almighty God shines His light upon everyone at periods of time in history, and that we sort of pause and we say, okay, well, this is where we are. How's the lesson going? What do you think of this? Um, just as sort of a reminder that we are on a lesson, and we don't make wars here, and we don't murder each other, and is something going on where we are having some sort of a de-evolution, and what's causing that? Um, Judging from what were called uprisings overseas, I have to believe that is what was going on. That Almighty God was saying that it's time to sort of go over this lesson. That people were ready for that. That the suffering had reached a level where people were asking him to please stop this or explain this, and is there some sort of 2,000 years, and where is Jesus, and is any of that true? Are we doomed here? What's going on? And then sort of he speaks, and from my view, sometimes with some people, mass confusion takes place. Because for some reason, they cannot exodus 20. They cannot exodus the world system and the delusion. So, I like to just speak directly. If a person feels that I'm mentally ill, and what am I talking about with those types of questions, if they could just explain how I'm mentally ill. Am I schizophrenic? Am I bipolar? Am I having grandiose delusions? Whatever it is, if they could explain that to me, okay? I don't mind answering questions, and I sort of, like when people answer some of mine. I know there's a lot of them, but I guess that would be sort of a good one, is some people have discussed that, I guess, for a long time with many, many servants when going over some sort of odd time in history, that when they're reading about it, they can't really understand it. They can't understand or explain what happened. And my view of that is sort of similar to what's going on now. That it's being asked of people, okay, how does this happen? Like, what's going on? If you have a society that has these certain laws and morals and things, how do you have someone that the U.S. government charged with neglect for said God told her. Is she mentally ill? Okay. Is that a valid charge? And if it is a valid charge, why? Do we not believe in God anymore? Do we think that God doesn't speak? Do we think we know who God speaks to and who God does not speak to? And is it even really about that? Or was that some sort of an excuse because you don't agree with alimony payments, or you don't agree with divorce, or you don't agree that women shouldn't work, or you, for some reason, think that I shouldn't have been having that life? And, the reasons for that, because it's sort of interesting to me personally why that would seem sort of normal, okay? And why that wouldn't be a question in terms of cognition. Are you not living in the United States of America anymore? Do we not have free speech? Do we not have this establishment clause? Are the alimony laws wrong? What is your reality? Which I'm open to hearing about, of course. If a populace has decided that another reality is existing here, if they could just explain it to me, and, what is that? Have we decided we're going to be Nazi Germany? Are we going back into a royalty situation? Are we living in the Middle Ages? Like, what's going on? And are people allowed to choose if they want that reality or not? Because I really think by now that most people can kind of tell that there is not this set up checks and balances system going on. And that if you're still partaking in the world right now, that you sort of agree with that. And why do you agree with that? Is that something that you always thought, or is it a new thought? Were you, quote unquote, awoken in 2011 and just have not really split your minds, and have you not sought out Almighty God? Or are you an atheist? Are you a Buddhist? Do you think that people just continue to reincarnate and there's never any end to the world, that we just keep rebuilding it, and new systems and worlds, and there's a continual slavery system? I would really personally disagree with that. That's not really the end result of this, and that just because a lesson goes on for a very long time does not mean that that lesson never ends. And rather than having to experience sort of the very negative effects of the slavery system, would it be sort of wiser on your part to listen to the servants giving the testimony as to why this system is not good? And perhaps sort of wonder why over the course of history none of these governmental systems have ever lasted, and that why would not mankind learn and create some other system of government slavery that would work, um, in terms of if you can think of it. I myself would believe that Almighty God would never allow that to happen if there was an actual system where people could make up a slavery system that would never end, that our minds would never be allowed to invent that because we're not created for that, and Almighty God won't allow it. So, those are just some of my thoughts in terms of um, things on CNN and things that I've heard, and just my thought pattern at this moment. I sort of try to wait and see if something comes in. Now, in terms of history and how sort of these books and things were written, I'd be happy to make a video in terms of my understanding of that and how that occurred, and how to become sort of, if you want, sort of not better at that, but just sort of more open to it and how that occurs, and the importance of getting rid of some of the fear and the mind expectations about reality and what humans are, and doctrines and sort of childlike things about demons, and how did that cloud appear there, or how did someone know something, or why did their voice just change, or how is that creature even uttering sounds, things like that.